hear me? Oh, Mercury, Neptune. Mercury stationing to go direct at the beginning of the week. Well, actually, before the beginning of the week, if you're taking this from October 3rd. But Mercury is not only stationing to go direct, where always a time when mercurial mishaps multiply and alliterations also multiply. It's opposite Neptune, almost opposite Neptune. So what happens is that we get this double whammy. The Mercury station direct, which would fog things out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Maybe we'd get up on our feet by Tuesday under normal circumstances. Still in the shadow of the retrograde, but, moving a little bit better. And then we have the opposition to Neptune, the almost opposition to Neptune. What happens is that Mercury retrograded and Neptune is retrograding too, and they almost got opposite to each other, and Mercury goes direct, and then they start separating. They're very, very close to each other. They're very, very close to each other throughout the week. And we're likely to see some issues because of this. Mercury retrograde, of course, communications and contracts and all of those things, technology, transportation. But you throw in that Neptunian thing and things get really, really blown out of proportion. Now you have people telling stories that they believe, ridiculous stories that they believe, or sometimes just lying to you. Sometimes people are just lying. Right. But very likely a lot of folks will just, they'll believe their own BS. That happens with Mercury opposite Neptune. You get so wrapped up in the story, like it's a version of reality. It would be so much better if this was the correct version of reality. Let's stick with that. And so there's an issue. Also, too, Neptune will make that Mercury station and all the regular Mercury problems sort of blow them out of proportion, as it were. So not a lot you can do at the beginning part of the week. And then we shift over into the middle part of the week when we get close to a Mercury-Pluto trine. Now, Mercury's essentially been stationing not only opposite Neptune, but trine to Pluto. You might look back to last week, September 27th. It was Tuesday, I believe, but it could be Monday, it could be Wednesday, to find something that you were working on, some thing that was trying to, fit the pieces together and didn't quite work. You might actually get things to click someplace around midweek this week. If you're really, really paying attention, if you've got an issue that's really, really been like the pebble in your shoe, you can't quite get rid of it, and you've been thinking about it and working at it for a while, you might look back to see if it didn't get started right around August 21st. Give it a couple of days on either side. These aspects are not really all that precise. They build and then they fade after they're exact. But right around that time, Mercury was opposite Neptune and trine to Pluto. So it was like a good idea, a plan that kind of got derailed. And then we've been working on it we've been working on it for a while. We almost got to the solution last week. And now we can probably, send it to the printer, as it were. That's what we're looking at midweek. So it's a good opportunity, in a sense, to clear up a mess. And that's about as good as things get for this week. And it's not bad, but it's about as good as things get for this week, because Mercury's retrograde, as much as Mercury's direct now, Mercury's retrograde delayed us deep into the shadow of Mars's retrograde. So we're ready to go forward, and there's a lot of planets are going forward this month. In October, there's an October forecast. You should look, see if you subscribe to the channel, then it just comes to you. But otherwise, there's an October forecast you can watch. Anyway, Pluto goes direct. I'll talk about that in a second. Saturn goes direct. Juno goes direct. And Mars goes retrograde this month. So there's a lot of shifting going on, a lot of changes, a lot of turnarounds that are happening. But for most of our projects, for most of the things that we'd be looking at doing, it's that Mars retrograde and the fact that we're in the shadow of it all month long. It's that is sort of the thing that matters the most. It's the difference that makes a difference for us. So we got delayed into the shadow of Mars retrograde. You know, this is the story. You go for a job interview and it gets delayed, and then, you know, they give you the second interview and that gets delayed, and then you have it sometime in October, and then you have to start the job with Mars retrograde, and that's not a great time for taking on new projects. So what we want to do here is we want to clear up stuff that's been sitting out there. It's a really good time to go back to things that you have left undone. All kinds of projects that got started and got left undone. This is the time to go back and do them. Not a great time to initiate that brand new thing. We got delayed. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault. Things, the part didn't arrive. Your supply chain, whatever level that resonates, your supply chain problems delayed you, and now you have to kind of wait. Okay, so you're working on reworking things, going back. You probably got all kinds of stuff that you could do, all kinds of things that are unfinished. House projects. I got a house project that I got to do. You've got, writing projects. You've got, all sorts of things. This is a good time to start thinking about getting back to them. That's the overall message, the message of October, really. This week, then we have that middle of the week time that's especially good for resolving things that have been hanging up in the air, particularly for the last couple of weeks. If you're really that kind of person, and you've got the information there on your phone, you can look at your emails and stuff like that, you might notice that right around Sunday, Monday, something happens, perhaps goes wrong. Get it resolved in a couple of days. That is related to something happened around September 9th to the 12th. That's when Mercury retrograded over the degree where that's when Neptune was at the degree where directly opposite where Mercury's. You don't care. September 9th to 12th is another time where we're sort of clearing up stuff. But we're always, we're clearing up stuff from the entire retrograde. So why should you get lost in the details? Because Mercury is in Virgo, and I'm making this video with Mercury retrograde in Virgo, and I'm getting lost in the details. See, it works. It works so well. Anyways, then comes the end of the week, and shit gets serious. Why? Because on Saturday, Pluto stations to go direct. And on Sunday, we have the full moon in Aries, which is Mars' home sign. And Mars is, of course, getting ready to retrograde. What's all that mean? Okay, Pluto stations, implosive energy, a very kind of pulling in, power struggles. Let's just say power struggles. It's a time when folks want to get their way. Right? It's that kind of, there's that irritableness, that sort of, if I don't get to do things my way, there's going to be trouble. It's sort of like Pluto gets you to seethe about things. You might be feeling a little of this already. Maybe it's me. Pluto can get you to seethe about things, get you really pissed off and sort of hold it all inside when you get to that Pluto station. And then there's the full moon, and you know about full moons, they're explosive. So we contract and expand rapidly. That's next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, going forward. Feeling it probably as early as Thursday. So it's a very volatile kind of energy. It'll play out in our personal lives, no doubt. Not you, not you, not you, not you are on top of your stuff. But some of those other folks might be losing their shit. So you got to be a little bit careful. You got to, don't want to provoke people. Right? You never know when you're stepping on the tail of the tiger, as the I Ching says. It would at least be good to know when you're stepping on the tail of the tiger, when you're poking the bear. May not be that obvious to you. Well, a little bit of caution is advised when it comes to dealing with others. The other thing is on the collective level. On the collective level, this is pretty serious for a couple of reasons. First of all, Pluto stations are serious on the collective level, especially when they're tied to a full moon. Things have not been going well at the collective level. So let's not assume that things are going to get so much worse. But just when you think you've hit bottom, you find that bottom has a basement. And I would be a little concerned. Two of the special reasons for that are, one, we are at the U.S. Pluto return. This is all of 2022. This is a station. It's not an exact hit, but it is a time when that Pluto return. Pluto's gone around the dial once since 1776, and there's a lot of deep transformation happening. Things fall apart before they get put back together, if they get put back together. So we're likely to be really feeling that, if not seeing some evidence of it, we're likely to be feeling, wow, things are kind of falling apart. The other side of the story is that when Pluto first stationed direct in September of 2008, it was on that very day that the financial crisis began. Now, I am not saying, you'll recall from my October video, I'm not saying that same type of thing is going to happen this time around. We may have possibly learned something in the meantime. Because I'm an optimist. But I'm not saying it's going to be the same type of thing. Essentially, if you look at the markets, if you look at inflation, we're already in the midst of we're officially in a recession by just about any. I think we've had 3 quarters of negative growth, and you only need 2 to have the definition. So it's not like we're not already in a lot of trouble with this, the Pluto return of the U.S. and so on. But what happens when planets enter, like the outer planets, let's say Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, when they enter a sign, something happens and it's like a flagship thing. And when they leave the sign, there's another little flagship moment to be very, very similar in kind, not necessarily in degree, and in fact, often not as severe a degree, although because of the U.S. Pluto return. But anyways, I would be very circumspect about, investments and things like that until fairly far after the Pluto station. In fact, probably be pretty careful about it until, well, not because of the U.S. election, but until after the U.S. election, because that's when stuff maybe begins to shift a little bit. In other words, we are leaving the confusion of Mercury, Neptune, and we are getting into this sort of bottom line, hard reality that is going to really describe most of October. And we're likely to get the first real serious installment of it somewhere towards the end of the week. Now, I am not saying that you should spend the week in bed. Not that spending the week in bed is necessarily all that bad. But I am saying that you want to take a little time, walk away from stuff, give yourself a little space, certainly at the beginning of the week. Go for a walk, make a dent on the couch someplace, reread a book, listen to some music, meditate, do things like that. End of the week, let the world go by a little bit. You may have to act. You may have to act. You may have to do things. You may have to respond to a situation. Don't be the deer in the headlights. But, this is not necessarily a time for getting wondrous cooperation, even on a social level, even just socializing. You're not necessarily going to get a lot of cooperation towards the end of the week. Middle of the week, you got some potential as far as clearing up a mess is concerned. But the most important thing undoubtedly has to be